The Neon Jungle. The city of Lumora never slept. Neon lights flickered against towering skyscrapers, their glow reflecting on rain-slick streets below. Cars hovered silently above ground level, weaving through the dense fog of pollution. The hum of machinery and distant chatter filled the air, creating a symphony of life that pulsed through the veins of the city. In this cyberpunk world, every corner hid secrets, and danger lurked behind every shadow. Maya adjusted her hood, pulling it lower to hide her face from the street cameras. She moved quickly through the narrow alley, her boots splashing in puddles as the rain continued to pour. Her destination was a high-security corporate lab owned by Nexus Corp, the most powerful company in the city. Nexus controlled everything: technology, food supplies, and even the law. But tonight, Maya planned to steal something they didn't want anyone to know about. The lab was a fortress, protected by drones, guards, and state-of-the-art surveillance systems. But Maya wasn't an ordinary thief. She was a skilled hacker with a reputation for breaking into places no one else dared. She reached the building's rear entrance and pulled out a small device from her jacket. With a few clicks, the security panel on the door lit up. Her fingers danced across the keypad, bypassing firewalls and disabling alarms. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Maya slipped inside, her heart pounding. The hallway was cold and sterile, lined with glass walls that revealed labs filled with advanced equipment. Scientists in white coats worked behind the glass, unaware of her presence. She moved swiftly, her footsteps silent, as she followed the directions on her holographic map. Almost there, she whispered to herself, glancing at her wristband. The map showed the lab's central containment unit just ahead. As she approached the final door, her map flashed red, a warning. She froze, listening carefully. The faint whirring of a drone echoed down the corridor. Maya ducked into the shadows, holding her breath as the surveillance drone hovered past. Its camera lens scanned the area, but it didn't spot her. When it moved on, she exhaled and continued. Inside the containment unit, the air felt different, heavier. The room was dimly lit, with a single pod in the center surrounded by monitors and wires. Maya frowned. She had expected to find a prototype weapon or sensitive data, but instead there was a gorilla. The creature was enormous, its muscles rippling beneath thick fur. It was strapped to the pod, wires connected to its body, and a glowing device embedded in its chest. Maya hesitated, her instincts screaming at her to leave, but something about the gorilla's eyes stopped her. They weren't the eyes of an animal. They were intelligent, almost human, and they were filled with fear. "What are you?" she muttered under her breath, stepping closer. The monitors around the pod displayed lines of code, but one phrase stood out: Project Titan. Asset 34. The gorilla's eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment, Maya felt a pang of guilt. Nexus wasn't just experimenting with technology. They were creating living weapons. She reached for the control panel, her fingers trembling as she worked to unlock the pod. Alarms blared, red lights flashing as the system detected her interference. "No, no, no," she hissed, frantically typing. The pod hissed open, and the gorilla staggered out, towering over her. Maya stepped back, unsure if the creature would attack. But instead, it knelt, as if exhausted, and a deep mechanical voice came from the device on its chest. "Thank you." Maya's eyes widened. The gorilla could speak. Before she could respond, the room shook violently. Security drones swarmed through the entrance, their weapons trained on her and the gorilla. She grabbed the device from her jacket, hacking into the drone's systems as quickly as she could. One by one, the drones malfunctioned, crashing to the floor. But more were coming. "Move," she shouted, grabbing the gorilla's arm. It hesitated for a moment before following her. They ran through the corridors, alarms blaring and guards closing in. The gorilla proved to be faster than she expected, smashing through obstacles with ease. "Why are they chasing us?" Maya demanded as they ducked into another hallway. The gorilla glanced at her, its mechanical voice low. They want me. Alive. I know their secrets. Before she could ask more, they burst through the building's emergency exit and into the rain-soaked streets. Maya leaned against the wall, catching her breath. The gorilla stood beside her, its massive frame casting a shadow over her. What now? She asked, realizing the mess she had gotten herself into. The gorilla turned its head toward the city skyline, where the Nexus Corp tower loomed like a dark beacon. We run, it said, and we fight. Maya nodded, her resolve hardening. She had no idea what secrets this creature held, but one thing was clear. Nexus Corp wasn't going to stop hunting them, and she wasn't going to let them win. The neon jungle roared around them as they disappeared into the night, a fugitive hacker and a cybernetic gorilla bound by a shared enemy. The game had just begun. The woman in the shadows. The underground felt like another world, dark, damp, and alive with whispers of rebellion. Maya guided the towering gorilla, Rook, through the maze of tunnels beneath the city. The faint glow of neon seeped through cracks in the walls above. But here, far from the surface, the hum of machinery was replaced by an eerie silence. Rook, though massive and cybernetically enhanced, moved with surprising grace. His glowing eyes scanned the environment, alert to any sign of danger. Maya had questions, too many questions, but they had no time for answers yet. Nexus Corp would be hunting them, and the longer they stayed in one place, the greater the risk. Where exactly are we going? Rook's deep, metallic voice broke the silence. To someone who might help, Maya replied, not looking back. She doesn't trust easily, but if anyone can figure out what Nexus did to you, it's Zara. Zara? Rook tilted his head. Why would she help? She has her reasons, Maya said shortly. Truthfully, she wasn't entirely sure Zara would help. The rogue scientist had her own agenda, and trust wasn't something she gave freely. But Zara's knowledge of Nexus experiments made her the only option. The pair emerged into a vast chamber where old industrial machinery lay rusting. At the far end, a faint light flickered. A makeshift lab cobbled together from scavenged parts. Zara stood in the center, her silver hair tied back in a tight ponytail. She wore a patched coat with countless tools dangling from its pockets. Her sharp eyes narrowed as Maya and Rook approached. I told you not to bring trouble to my doorstep, Zara said, her voice cold. She glanced at Rook, her expression unreadable. And this is definitely trouble. Nice to see you too, Maya shot back. He's not what you think. He's part of a Nexus experiment. They were using him to. I know what Nexus does, Zara interrupted. What I don't know is why you thought bringing one of their projects here was a good idea. Rook stepped forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over Zara. I'm not just a project, he said, his voice calm but firm. I was their prisoner. And I know things they don't want anyone else to know. Zara raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. Instead, she walked around Rook, examining him with a critical eye. She reached for a tool from her coat and scanned the device embedded in his chest. The scanner beeped erratically, and Zara's frown deepened. You've got a chip in there, she said, pointing to Rook's chest. A very advanced one. If I had to guess, it's holding something big, something Nexus would kill to keep hidden. That's why we're here, Maya said. We need to remove it. Remove it? Zara laughed bitterly. You don't just remove something like this. It's integrated into his systems. If I take it out the wrong way, he dies. Rook glanced at Maya, his expression grim. If it's dangerous, maybe we shouldn't. No, Maya interrupted. We're not giving up. Whatever's on that chip is worth the risk. Zara sighed, rubbing her temples. Fine. I'll help. But this won't be easy. And it won't be quick. Nexus will come looking for you, and when they do, I'm not risking my neck to save yours. Fair enough, Maya said. Just tell us what to do. As Zara set to work, the lab's dim light flickered ominously. Rook sat on a reinforced chair while Zora examined his systems. Maya paced nervously, her mind racing. The truth was, she didn't fully trust Zora. The scientist had a history of working both sides, and Maya wouldn't put it past her to sell them out if the price was right. "Tell me something," Rook said suddenly, breaking the silence. "Why are you helping me?" Maya stopped pacing and looked at him. "Because Nexus needs to be stopped. What they've done to you, to others, it's not right." Rook's glowing eyes studied her. "You're risking a lot for someone you just met." "I've seen what Nexus can do," Maya said, her voice hard. "They take, and when they're done, there's nothing left. If I can stop them, even a little, it's worth the risk." Before Rook could respond, Zora cursed under her breath. "We've got a problem." "What kind of problem?" Maya asked, rushing to her side. Zora pointed to a monitor displaying the stream of data. "The chip is transmitting a signal. Nexus knows exactly where we are." As if on cue, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed through the tunnels. Maya's heart sank. Nexus agents were here, and they weren't going to let any of them leave alive. "Get ready," Maya said, pulling out her weapon. She glanced at Rook. "Can you fight?" Rook stood, his massive fists clenching. "I was made to fight." The lab's entrance exploded in a shower of sparks as Nexus agents stormed in, their weapons trained on the trio. Maya ducked behind a table, firing at the intruders. Rook charged forward, his cybernetic strength tearing through the agents like paper. Zara worked frantically to erase her data, cursing every time the system lagged. Amid the chaos, Maya realized something. This wasn't just about survival. Whatever was on that chip, it could be the key to bringing Nexus down. But first, they had to make it out alive. The battle raged on, the shadows of the underground flickering with every explosion. Maya, Rook, and Zara were outnumbered, but they refused to give up. Together, they would fight, because the truth was worth it. And so was freedom. The guerrillas passed. The underground safe house was eerily quiet, save for the faint hum of machinery from Zora's lab equipment. Maya sat on an old, worn couch, her eyes darting toward Rook, who was staring out a small, grated window. The rain fell in steady streams outside, its rhythm matching the uneasy pulse in her chest. Zara was busy in the corner, sorting through tools and parts, muttering to herself about the damage the Nexus agents had caused during the attack. Maya finally broke the silence. "We need answers, Rook. You said you know their secrets. What did Nexus do to you?" Rook didn't turn around. His massive frame seemed even larger in the dimly lit room, his cybernetic enhancements glowing faintly in the shadows. After a long pause, he spoke. "I wasn't always like this," he began, his deep metallic voice carrying a weight that made both Maya and Zara stop what they were doing. "I was born in a jungle on another continent. I remember the warmth of the sun, the sound of the river, the taste of freedom. I had a family, a troop." Maya leaned forward, her curiosity piqued. "What happened?" "They came," Rook said, his voice dropping. "Humans. Not like you, corporate hunters. They captured us, caged us. I was sold to Nexus when I was barely more than a child. They saw potential in me, not as an animal, but as a tool." Zora frowned, stepping closer. "So they experimented on you?" Rook nodded, his glowing eyes meeting hers. "They stripped away my body, piece by piece, replacing it with metal and wires. My mind. They tampered with that too. They wanted to make me obedient, a perfect soldier for their off-world colonies. But something went wrong." "What do you mean?" Maya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "They couldn't erase me," Rook said, tapping the side of his head. "I remembered who I was. And I hated them for what they did to me. But they didn't know that. They thought they had created the perfect weapon." Zara crossed her arms. "And then what? You escaped?" "No," Rook said bitterly. "They sent me on missions, to suppress rebellions, to destroy lives. I saw innocent people, men, women, children, suffer because of me. I tried to resist, but they controlled me through the chip in my chest. Every time I disobeyed, they punished me, but I learned to play along, to pretend. Maya felt a chill run down her spine. You pretended to be their loyal weapon, while looking for a way out. Yes, Rook said, his voice firm. And eventually, I found it. During a mission, I sabotaged their systems and ran. I've been hiding ever since, trying to figure out how to remove this chip and end their control over me. But it's more than just my freedom at stake. That chip holds data, proof of everything they've done. If we can expose it, we can take them down. Zara sighed, rubbing the back of her neck. You're a walking time bomb, you know that. If Nexus gets their hands on you, they won't just kill you. They'll use you to silence anyone who tries to oppose them. Rook turned to face her, his expression grim. Then we can't let them get me. Maya stood, pacing the room. This changes everything. If what you're saying is true, we're not just fighting for you. We're fighting for everyone they've hurt, and everyone they'll hurt in the future. Zara raised an eyebrow. And you think exposing their secrets will stop them? Nexus owns this city. They own the system. Even if we broadcast the truth, what's to stop them from burying it? People, Maya said, her voice filled with conviction. If enough people know the truth, they'll rise up. Nexus might control the system, but they don't control us. Rook nodded. I've seen what humans are capable of when they fight for something they believe in. It's why I'm here. I believe in this fight. Zara sighed again, shaking her head. You're both insane, you know that. But maybe that's what we need. The room fell silent again, the weight of Rook's story hanging over them. Maya could see the pain in his eyes, the guilt that seemed to weigh him down more than his massive cybernetic frame ever could. She felt a surge of determination. Rook wasn't just a victim. He was a survivor, and she wasn't going to let Nexus win. Rest up, Zara said finally, turning back to her tools. If we're going to take on Nexus, we'll need a plan, and we'll need to move fast. Maya and Rook exchanged a glance. For the first time, she saw him not as a machine or an experiment, but as someone who had suffered just as much as any human. They were in this together now, and there was no turning back. The rain outside continued to fall, a steady rhythm that echoed the resolve building inside the safe house. The fight against Nexus was far from over, but Maya knew one thing for sure: they weren't going to lose. Not while they still had a chance to expose the truth. The neon lights of the city above seemed to pulse with anticipation, as if the very fabric of Lemuria knew a storm was coming. And Maya, Rook, and Zara were at the heart of it. The cyberpunk city's secret. The underground safe house was a temporary haven, but the world above them was relentless. Nexus agents were combing the city for any trace of Maya, Rook, and Zara. The tension in the air was palpable as they prepared to take their next step, finding the beacon, the rumored hub of the city's hidden data network. If they could reach it, they could broadcast the secrets embedded in Rook's chip to the entire city. But that was easier said than done. Explain this again, Maya said, pacing in the dimly lit room. Her nerves were raw, her voice sharp. The beacon is real, but no one knows where it is. Zara, sitting cross-legged on a workbench, rolled her eyes. Oh, it's real. I've seen glimpses of it in Nexus's schematics. It's an abandoned data hub from before the corporation consolidated power. It's hidden somewhere deep in the city, probably in a sector no one visits anymore. Maya stopped pacing and faced her. And you never thought to find it until now. I didn't have a reason to. Zara shot back. The beacon is useless without the right data. Now we have the chip, and suddenly it's worth the risk. Rook, leaning against the wall with his massive arms crossed, interrupted, his voice low but firm. What kind of risk are we talking about? Zara sighed, tapping on a holographic display that projected the city map into the air. She zoomed in on an area marked Sector 12, a decayed district swallowed by shadows and neglect. "It's here," she said, pointing to a darkened grid. "The old tech quarter. Nexus abandoned it years ago when their newer systems made everything there obsolete. But it's still crawling with automated defenses, rogue machines, and, if rumors are true, scavengers who don't like company." "Sounds cozy," Maya muttered, studying the map. "How do we get in without drawing attention?" "We don't," Zara replied. "That's the thing about Sector 12. It's a black zone. No Nexus surveillance, no drones, no law enforcement. They don't care what happens there. If we go in, we're on our own." Rook straightened, his glowing eyes fixed on the map. "Good. Less Nexus interference means a better chance to move undetected. Unless the scavengers kill us," Zara added dryly. Maya ignored her. "What about power? If this beacon is still active, it'll need a power source." Zara smirked. "That's the beauty of it. The beacon runs on an old fusion core. It's self-sustaining. Nexus probably didn't bother shutting it down because it's not worth the effort. But that doesn't mean it'll be easy to access. The data we need is buried deep in its servers." Maya nodded, her mind racing. This was their best shot at taking down Nexus, but it was also their most dangerous move yet. "Then we go tonight," she said firmly. "The longer we wait, the more time Nexus has to find us." The journey to Sector 12 was like stepping into a different world. The glittering towers of Lemora's corporate districts faded behind them, replaced by crumbling buildings and flickering neon signs barely clinging to life. The streets were eerily quiet, filled with the distant echoes of malfunctioning machines and the occasional shadow of something, or someone, moving in the distance. "Stay close," Maya whispered, gripping her weapon tightly as they navigated the narrow alleyways. Rook walked beside her, his massive presence both comforting and intimidating. Zara brought up the rear, her scanner out and ready to detect any threats. They reached the edge of the old tech quarter, a massive gate covered in rust and overgrown vines. The gate's control panel sparked weakly as Zara approached it. "Give me a minute," Zara said, pulling out her tools. She worked quickly, bypassing the old security protocols. The gate groaned loudly as it opened, the sound echoing through the empty streets. "That's subtle," Maya muttered. They stepped inside, the atmosphere changing instantly. The air was thick with the smell of decay and burnt circuits. Broken machines littered the ground, their parts scavenged long ago. The only light came from the faint glow of the beacon's tower in the distance, a single structure standing tall amidst the ruins. "There it is," Zora said, pointing. The beacon. It looked ancient, its metal frame covered in rust and overgrowth, but its core pulsed faintly with light. The sight filled Maya with a strange sense of hope. This was the key to their mission, the heart of their rebellion. As they moved closer, the faint whir of machinery caught their attention. Maya froze, signaling for the others to stop. From the shadows, a group of scavengers emerged, their faces hidden by makeshift masks. They carried crude weapons, but their body language was aggressive. "Outsiders," one of them growled. "You don't belong here." "We're not here to cause trouble," Maya said, raising her hands. "We just need access to the beacon." The scavenger laughed, a harsh, metallic sound. "The beacon. That's ours now. If you want it, you'll have to fight for it." Before Maya could respond, Rook stepped forward. His towering frame and glowing eyes silenced the scavengers instantly. "We don't have time for this," he said, his voice like thunder. "Stand aside, or you'll regret it." The scavengers hesitated, clearly intimidated. But before they could make a decision, the ground beneath them shook violently. From the ruins, an enormous rogue machine emerged, its body a twisted amalgamation of metal and wires. Its red eyes locked onto the group, and it let out a deafening roar. "Run!" Zora shouted, but it was too late. The machine charged, its massive limbs smashing through the rubble. Rook didn't flinch. He charged back, meeting the machine head-on with a force that shook the ground. Maya and Zara ducked for cover as the battle raged, sparks flying and metal screeching. Rook fought with a ferocity Maya had never seen, his cybernetic strength matching the machine's brutal power. But the machine was relentless, its claws narrowly missing Rook as he dodged and countered. "Get to the beacon," Rook yelled, his voice cutting through the chaos. "I'll hold it off." Maya hesitated, torn between helping him and completing their mission. But Zara grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the beacon. "He's right. We can't let this chance slip away." They ran toward the tower, the sound of the battle fading behind them. The beacon loomed closer, its light pulsing faster as they approached. Maya's heart raced. This was it, the moment they had been fighting for. But as they reached the entrance, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. Infiltration and betrayal. The beacon's interior was a labyrinth of old tech and forgotten machinery, its walls humming faintly with power. Maya and Zara moved cautiously through the dimly lit corridors, their steps echoing on the metal floor. The tower felt alive, like it had been waiting for someone to awaken it. But every creak and groan of the structure reminded them they weren't alone. "Stay sharp," Maya whispered, gripping her weapon tightly. "We don't know what's in here." Zara smirked, her usual sarcasm masking the tension in her voice. "Relax. If anything wanted us dead, we'd know by now." Maya wasn't convinced. The fight with the rogue machine outside had left her on edge. She glanced back toward the entrance, where Rook had stayed behind to hold off the monstrous construct. The sounds of their clash had faded, but Maya couldn't shake the feeling that something had gone wrong. "Focus," Zara said, snapping her fingers in front of Maya's face. "We've got a job to do." The two women pressed forward, eventually reaching a massive chamber at the heart of the beacon. The room was dominated by an ancient server core, its glass panels glowing with streams of encrypted data. Wires snaked across the floor, connecting the core to consoles and monitors scattered around the room. "This is it," Zara said, her eyes lighting up. She moved quickly to one of the consoles, pulling out her tools. "If that chip in Rook's chest has the data we need, this is where we'll extract it." Maya nodded, her unease growing. The beacon was too quiet. It didn't feel abandoned. It felt watched. "Get started," Maya said, positioning herself near the doorway. "I'll keep watch." Zara didn't argue. She was already lost in the sea of code scrolling across the monitor, her fingers flying over the keyboard. Maya kept her eyes on the shadows, her weapon raised. She couldn't shake the feeling that something, or someone, was coming. Minutes passed like hours. Maya's grip on her weapon tightened with every creak and groan of the tower. Finally, Zara spoke. "Got it," she exclaimed, her voice triumphant. "The chip's data is syncing with the beacon's core. Once it's fully uploaded, we can broadcast everything." Maya allowed herself a small smile. "Good. Let's finish this and get out of here." But Zara's expression darkened. She hesitated, glancing at the screen before turning to Maya. "There's something else." "What do you mean?" Maya asked, her stomach sinking. "This data isn't just about Rook's experiments," Zara said. "It's a blueprint for a weapon Nexus is building, a weapon that can control every cybernetic lifeform in the city. If they complete it, they'll have total domination." Maya's blood ran cold. "Then we need to expose it. All of it." Zara hesitated again, her eyes narrowing. "Or we sell it." Maya froze. "What?" "You heard me," Zara said, her voice steady. "This data is worth more than you can imagine. Every rival corporation, every black market dealer, they'd pay a fortune for this. We could disappear, Maya. Start new lives, far away from all of this." Maya's hands tightened into fists. "We didn't come here to profit. We came here to stop Nexus. And what's stopping Nexus from just replacing the people we expose?" Zara countered. "You think a little truth is going to bring them down. They'll bury it, spin it, and keep doing what they've always done. Maya shook her head, her voice trembling with anger. You're wrong. People will fight back. They just need to know what they're fighting for. Zara stepped closer, her tone soft but insistent. You're idealistic, Maya. I get it. But we can't win this fight. Not the way you think. Before Maya could respond, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed down the corridor. She spun around, weapon raised, as a group of Nexus agents burst into the room, their rifles trained on them. Hands up. One of the agents barked. Maya's heart raced as she raised her weapon. She glanced at Zara, whose face remained frustratingly calm. You tipped them off, Maya hissed. Zara didn't deny it. I called them before we left the safe house. I figured it was safer to have options. You betrayed us, Maya shouted. Zara's expression hardened. I made a choice. Now make yours. Stand down, or we both die. Maya didn't hesitate. She fired her weapon, the room erupting into chaos. The agents returned fire, and Zara dove behind a console, shouting curses as bullets ricocheted off the walls. In the midst of the chaos, the ground shook violently. A massive figure appeared in the doorway, its glowing eyes cutting through the smoke. Rook stormed into the room, his cybernetic arms smashing through the Nexus agents like they were paper. His arrival turned the tide of the fight, and within moments, the agents were either unconscious or fleeing. Maya turned to Zara, her weapon trained on her. Give me one reason not to shoot you right now. Zara raised her hands, her voice steady. Because you need me to finish the upload. Maya hesitated, her finger twitching on the trigger. Rook stepped forward, his massive hand gently lowering her weapon. She's right, Rook said. Let her finish. But after that, we settle this. Zara smirked. Fair enough. As Zara returned to the console, Maya exchanged a tense glance with Rook. The room was a battlefield, both physically and emotionally. Trust had been shattered, alliances questioned. But one thing was clear, the fight wasn't over. Not yet. The guerrillas' redemption. The aftermath of the battle left the beacon's central chamber in shambles. Sparks flew from broken machinery, and the faint hum of the server core was now accompanied by a grating, irregular sound that echoed through the room. Maya stood at the center, her weapon still raised, her eyes locked on Zara. Trust was a fragile thing, and Zara had shattered it. You finish that upload, and then you're done, Maya said, her voice icy. No more games, no more betrayals. Zara didn't respond immediately. Her fingers danced over the keyboard, her expression unreadable. The upload is at 80%, she muttered. We've got a few minutes left. Just keep an eye on the door. Nexus isn't done with us. Maya didn't need to be told twice. She turned to Rook, who was leaning against a support beam, his cybernetic arms sparking slightly from the earlier fight. His massive frame seemed smaller now, weighed down by exhaustion and something deeper, regret. You okay? Maya asked, stepping closer. Rook nodded, though his glowing eyes betrayed his pain. I'll survive. But that machine outside, it wasn't random. What do you mean? Maya frowned. Rook straightened, his voice low but steady. That machine wasn't just a rogue construct. It was one of Nexus' prototypes, part of the same program that created me. They didn't just build me, they built others. And now they're sending them to finish the job. Maya's stomach churned. There are more like you. Not like me, Rook said, shaking his head. I was their first experiment, their most advanced. But the others, they're pure machines. No soul, no hesitation. If they send more, we won't stand a chance. Maya clenched her fists, her resolve hardening. Then we need to finish this now. Expose Nexus, show the world what they've done. But before Rook could respond, the room shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling as the sound of metal scraping against metal filled the air. Zara cursed under her breath, her hands flying over the keyboard. We've got company, she said. And it's not just Nexus agents this time. The door to the chamber exploded inward, and a hulking figure stepped through the smoke, a second machine, larger and more menacing than the one Rook had fought outside. Its red eyes glowed with cold, unfeeling precision as it scanned the room. Rook stepped forward, his shoulders squaring despite his injuries. "Get the upload done," he said to Maya and Zora. "I'll handle this." "Rook, you're hurt," Maya protested, grabbing his arm. "You can't." "I have to," Rook interrupted, his voice firm. "This is my fight. If I don't stop it, it'll kill all of us." Before Maya could argue further, Rook charged toward the machine, his massive fists colliding with its metallic frame. The impact sent a shockwave through the room, but the machine barely flinched. It countered with a swipe of its razor-sharp claws, narrowly missing Rook's head. Maya turned back to Zora. "How much longer?" 2 minutes, Zora said through gritted teeth. "But if this thing takes out the server core, we're done." Maya cursed under her breath and opened fire on the machine, aiming for its joints. The bullets sparked harmlessly against its armor, but they drew its attention away from Rook for a split second, just long enough for the gorilla to land a powerful blow to its head. The machine staggered, its systems momentarily disrupted. Rook pressed his advantage, grabbing a piece of broken machinery and using it as a makeshift weapon. The two titans clashed, their battle shaking the room as Maya and Zora worked frantically to complete the upload. 90%, Zora announced. "Almost there." The machine roared, its mechanical voice echoing through the chamber. It lashed out with a powerful strike, sending Rook crashing into a wall. He groaned, struggling to his feet, his glowing eyes dimming slightly. "Rook!" Maya shouted, her heart pounding. She ran toward him, but he held up a hand to stop her. "Finish the mission," he said, his voice filled with determination. "This ends now." Summoning the last of his strength, Rook launched himself at the machine, grappling with it in a desperate struggle. Sparks flew as metal ground against metal, the sound deafening. Maya turned back to Zora, her voice urgent. "Hurry." "Done," Zora shouted, hitting the final command. The beacon's core lit up, its light pulsing brightly as the data upload completed. The broadcast signal surged through the tower, spreading Nexus's darkest secrets across the city. Maya felt a surge of relief, but it was short-lived. The machine roared again, overpowering Rook and pinning him to the ground. Its claws hovered over his chest, ready to deliver a fatal blow. "No," Maya screamed, raising her weapon. But before she could fire, Rook grabbed the machine's arm, his cybernetic strength surging one last time. "This is my redemption," Rook said quietly, his glowing eyes locking with Maya's. Then, with a guttural roar, he ripped the core from the machine's chest. The machine froze, its systems shutting down before collapsing to the ground. Rook slumped beside it, his breathing labored. Maya rushed to his side, her heart breaking as she saw the damage he had sustained. His cybernetic components sparked, and his organic body was battered and bleeding. "You did it," she said, her voice trembling. "You saved us." Rook managed a weak smile. "I didn't just save you, I saved myself." The room fell silent, the light of the beacon casting long shadows over the fallen machine and the battered hero. The battle was over, but the war was just beginning. Maya knew their fight against Nexus was far from finished, but for now, they had won a small, precious victory. And Rook, for the first time, had found peace. The broadcast. The beacon pulsed with life, its ancient machinery working harder than it had in decades. The server core emitted a low hum, signaling that the broadcast was live. Across the neon city of Limora, holographic screens flickered to life, displaying the damning evidence extracted from Rook's chip. Nexus's darkest secrets, its experiments, its crimes, its plans for total control, were now laid bare for everyone to see. Maya stood in the center of the chamber, breathing heavily as she surveyed the scene. The once pristine room was now a battlefield of scorched metal and shattered glass. Zara leaned against a console, her expression a mix of exhaustion and quiet satisfaction. But Maya's eyes were fixed on Rook, who lay slumped against the wall. "Rook," she said softly, kneeling beside him. His breathing was shallow, his cybernetic frame sparking and twitching. "We did it. The truth is out. They can't hide anymore." Rook's glowing eyes flickered weakly as he turned to look at her. "Good," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But it's not over." Maya frowned, her heart sinking. "What do you mean?" Rook's hand moved slowly, pointing toward a monitor. Maya followed his gaze, her stomach churning as she saw a warning flashing across the screen. "Nexus Response Unit incoming. They're sending everything they've got," Zara said grimly, her voice breaking the silence. "They'll wipe out this entire sector just to shut us down." Maya stood, her jaw tightening. "Then we fight. We've come too far to stop now." Zara shook her head. "You don't understand. This isn't just a cleanup team. It's a full strike force. Tanks, drones, heavy artillery. They'll turn this place into dust." Maya turned to Rook, her mind racing. "Can you move? We need to get you out of here." But Rook shook his head. "No, I'm staying." "What?" "No." Maya's voice cracked. "We're not leaving you behind." Rook's hand rested gently on her shoulder, his strength fading, but his resolve unwavering. "This is where I make my stand. If Nexus is sending their army, then I'll give them something to fight. I'll buy you time to escape." Tears welled in Maya's eyes. "You don't have to do this." "Yes, I do," Rook said, his voice steady despite his injuries. "This is my redemption. I've spent too long running, too long being their tool. If I can stop them, even for a moment, it's worth it." Maya's chest tightened as she fought back tears. She wanted to argue, to find another way. But deep down, she knew he was right. Rook had made his choice, and she had to honor it. "I'll stay too," Zara said suddenly, stepping forward. Maya blinked in surprise. "What? Why?" Zara shrugged, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Because someone needs to keep this broadcast running. If Nexus wants to stop it, they'll have to go through me." Maya looked between the two of them, her heart heavy with conflicting emotions. I can't leave you both here." "Yes, you can," Rook said firmly. "And you will. You're the one who started this fight, Maya. You're the one who has to finish it. Get out of here. Find the resistance. Tell them what we've done." Maya nodded slowly, her resolve hardening. She reached out, gripping Rook's massive hand tightly. "I won't let this be in vain. I promise." Rook smiled faintly, his glowing eyes dimming slightly. "I know you won't." Maya turned to Zara, who gave her a small nod. "Go," Zara said. "We'll hold them off as long as we can." With a heavy heart, Maya grabbed her gear and ran toward the exit. The corridors of the beacon were eerily quiet as she sprinted through them, her footsteps echoing in the metal halls. Behind her, the sounds of battle erupted as Nexus's strike force breached the tower. When she reached the surface, the city was in chaos. Nexus's secrets were spreading like wildfire, and the people of Lemora were rising up. Protests erupted in the streets, citizens tearing down corporate banners and clashing with Nexus enforcers. The neon lights of the city flickered as Nexus's grip on Lemora began to crumble. Maya paused on a rooftop, looking back at the beacon. Explosions lit up the tower as Nexus's forces closed in. She felt a pang of guilt for leaving Rook and Zara behind, but she knew their sacrifice wouldn't be in vain. Their fight was the spark that would ignite a revolution. As the city below roared with the sound of rebellion, Maya's resolve solidified. She would carry their story forward. She would fight for a world free from Nexus's tyranny. And she would make sure Rook's sacrifice was remembered. The beacon's light flickered one last time before it was consumed by fire. But the truth it had broadcast would burn brighter, spreading across the world like a wildfire Nexus could never extinguish. and Maya, standing tall amidst the chaos, vowed to see the fight through to the end. The revolution had begun, and it was only the beginning.